All right, in this video, we're going to be interpreting line and dot plots. So let's go ahead and let's look at the first problem again. It says a teacher used the dot plot below to record the number of answers each student got correct on the quiz. So the first question is asking me, what is the range of the data? And let's recall what range is. Remember, range is when we take the biggest number and we subtract the smallest number. Remember, the biggest is also known as the maximum, and the smallest is known as the minimum. So remember, it's when you take the maximum and subtract the minimum, or take the biggest number and subtract the smallest number. Now, remember again, we're not looking at our number line exactly. We're looking at where our data starts. So we would not count 0 as the smallest number because there's no data there. So our range, our biggest number, our max, would be 5. And then our smallest number would be 1, which is our minimum. So we would do 5 minus 1. And our range would be 4. Okay. Now, number 2, the next question is asking me, how many students had less than 4 answers correct? So let's stop and think real quick. Necessarily include the number 4, because here, I'm just going to write the inequality. We want x to be less than 4. Less than. That means we're not going to include the x's that are above 4. We just want the x's that are under 4. So let's go ahead and let's count those x's. Here we have 1, 2. We have a 1, 2, 3 here. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 x's here. And 2 plus 3 is 5. And 5 plus 8 is 13. So it says how many students had less than 4 answers correct? So less than 4, which means we're not going to include the 4. Our answer would be 13 students. Remember, reading the information off dot plots is like reading an inequality. You have to decide whether you're going to include the 4 or not, or whatever number it is. Okay, remember, if there's no line underneath it, it means we're not going to include that value. No line underneath it means we're not going to include the value. If there is a line underneath it, then we are going to include that value. So we just have to be really careful with that. All right, number 3. Here we're going to look at, and we see it says how many students scored at least 4. So I'm going to go back to my inequality. So I'm going to go ahead and write my inequality, and I'm going to write x is greater than or equal to 4. So I want all the x's that are above the 4 or above the 5. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to count those. And here I see that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 x's are above the 4. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 x's above the 5. So I would just add up 8 plus 6. And 8 plus 6 gives me 14 students scored at least a 4. Okay, so be careful with those inequalities. All right, let's try looking at another one. It says Mia used a dot plot to compare the amount of calories in different brands of types of peanut butter. It says how many peanut butters had more than 200. So I'm going to go to my inequality shack, and I'm going to write my inequality, and I'm going to write x is greater than 200. Now, because I'm saying greater than 200 or more than 200, I am not going to include the value of 200. I just want all the dots that are going to be above 200. So here's 200, and I want something that's greater than 200. So I look at the data that's shown on 210, and there's only 3 dots that are above the 210. So therefore, how many peanut butters had more than 200 calories? Only 3 did. So for number 1, our answer would be 3. Okay, let's look at the next one here, number 2. It says, what is the range in the calories? Remember, range is when we take the maximum and we subtract the minimum. Or we take the biggest and we subtract the smallest. Now, number in the data, not numbers necessarily on the number line. So if I look here, 160 does have a dot above it. So 160 would be my minimum. Now, 220 is on the number line, but there's no data at 220. So therefore, it is not my maximum. The maximum is 210 because that is the greatest spot where you actually see data. So this is our maximum here. And I'm going to put 210 above it. And then now all we have to do is 210 minus 160 is 50. Okay, so our answer would be 50 for this one here. Okay, and let's go ahead and let's look at the last one here. It says, how many peanut butters had 190 or less? 190 or less. So I'm going to go to my sheet again. So here I'm going to write x is less than or equal to 190. So I would include 90 and anything less than 90. So here I can see I have a dot that is 1. Then I have 1, 2, 3 here. And we are going to include the 90, so I'm going to count the 90. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here. So I can see that 1 cookie is less than 90, 3 more, plus 5 more. So 1 plus 3 plus 5 is 9 cookies are less than 990 calories. Less than. Remember, less than means that we're going to be pointing to the left. And it means less than, fewer than, smaller than, or under. So it means under that number. So we're not going to nest the quality page. And I'm going to look for the wording at least. And I see here that the wording at least pops up under my greater than or equal to inequality. So I want numbers that are greater than or equal to 4. Again, and I'm going to find the wording more than. And here I clearly see more than, and more than is underneath the greater. So I'm going to go. And I do see no more than, at most, up to. We do want a less than sign, because here we do want a less than or equal to, because this would be that number or less. So we're looking for a less than or equal to inequality for that one.